Hello, and welcome to another episode of Sharing Wisdom. I'm your host, Angie Wisdom, and today's episode is a first for me, you all. Today, I have Bishop Foreman on the podcast. Never had a bishop or a pastor on my podcast, and I'm so excited. His energy and his enthusiasm for life and the word is just, you can feel it in every word that he shares. His bio is so impressive. I mean, he's got 4 books out there, runs a church, he's a success coach, he's musically inclined. It goes on, but more than anything, the practical life lessons that he's going to bring to today's episode are going to be relatable for you. We're talking about adversity, we're talking about transformation, vision, evolution, so many good nuggets in here. So get excited for this wonderful episode with Bishop Foreman. All right, so Bishop Foreman, I mean, you and I both know that there's a lot going on in the world right now. And I thought, what better of a person to have on the podcast to bring some joy, to talk about,
Yes.
problems and how we can actually use them for our good. So before
Yes.
we even jump in, because I have so many questions for you, just kind of give me your take right now on the world, how you are approaching it, how you are telling people out there to deal with everything that's going on.
Oh my goodness. First of all, thank you so much for having me. So glad to be with you today. And I think the reality is there's always a lot going on in the world. It's like whack-a-mole. Remember, if you knock this down, something over here, you knock this down, something over here. I think the reality is to recognize that while the problem may be different, it's not unique. And while problems may be different, they're not unique. And one of the stories that comes to mind, there's this biblical narrative of a guy named David. And David eventually one day finds himself standing in front of a Goliath, a problem. He's a metaphor for a big problem. But before that, David tells his story that he had fought a lion and he had fought a bear as he's telling his story. Now, these are not the same as Goliath, but the principles are the same, which means I got to face this thing head on. And this problem is now going to create a pivot in me. It's going to create a change. And then that change, that pivot, is going to create something that's progressive, something that's productive, something that's profitable, something that allows you to experience joy. So finding joy in your journey. So I think no matter what's happening in the world, this too shall pass. Problems that we're dealing with today, they're going to be behind us. I mean, just think back a few years ago when we were in the middle of the pandemic, where for everybody alive, most people alive at that time had never faced a once in 100 years pandemic. But guess what happened? We faced it. We pivoted. We made progress. We were productive. There was pain. There was challenge. And one of the things that I think is most significant is for many of us, while we had never faced anything like that before, the problem itself had happened 100 years prior, meaning the uniqueness of it was nothing. It's that
Mm-hmm.
this problem has existed before. We've not dealt with it, but it's not unique. So the principles
Right,
to
right.
address it are the same things. I think it's taking that problem and recognizing now we got to pivot.
We're going to dig into that. And I love that you say, they're not unique. I tell
Yep.
clients all the time, like, look, whether you are starting your business out or whether you've been a
Yep.
leader for 25 years and you're,
Yep.
$100 million CEO,
Yep.
we have the same challenges, whether it's
Yep.
confidence, authenticity, mindset, they're just
Yes.
happening at different times in your life. So I love your perspective on that. I was digging through your content and I was it made me smile because your energy, your enthusiasm and just your realness for, the word and for God. I was like, has this guy always been like this? I mean, is this you 24/7? And
So
when did this start for you?
yeah, so the energy, it really is like that. People who come around me, they're like, oh my God, you're really like this all the time. Like, WYSIWYG, they used to say in computer programming, what you see is what you get. This is literally my energy. I am on 10 all the time. And even when I'm not on 10, I'm on 10. Like I am always energetic. And I really think that's because I view every day as I just hit the lotto. I just hit the
Yeah.
jackpot. I literally, when I get out of my bed, I was like, you hit the lotto again. You hit the jackpot again. Like you've been given what some people didn't get, which is another opportunity to be today who you weren't yesterday, to accomplish today what you didn't accomplish yesterday, to conquer today what you didn't conquer yesterday. So I take that approach to life. Now, does that mean I don't have human moments like everybody? Oh, no, I have human moments. But back to that where we started, I just pivot. Instead of focusing on the problem, I focus on the progress. Instead of focusing on the negative, I focus on the positives. Instead of focusing on the bad, I focus on the good. And I think that focus is what keeps my energy the way that it is. I
Mm-hmm.
am literally energetic like this, not just on camera, but all the time. My mind moves at like 1,000,000 miles an hour. And it's the funniest thing because one of my good friends, I've been friends now for 19 years. He's actually the vice chairman of our board of directors for the church, and he does some other things for me on my for-profit side. And I remember when we first met, of course, we have communication, and back then, FaceTime was like super new, and what have you. And so when we were connecting, yeah, I maybe would be moving really fast, and he just think, oh, nothing of it. And then he got around me. He said, "Oh my goodness, you're like this in person." He's like, "You just move 1,000,000 miles a minute. You talk like that. You walk like that. You move like that." I said, "That's just who I am." And so, the joke in my family is that I came out of my mom's womb with a Bible and a briefcase. Like I had this spiritual affinity that no one else in my family had really had. I was the first pastor in my family, first bishop, which is pastor, two pastors in my family, first to achieve certain financial levels of accomplishment, certain educational levels of accomplishment. So it was just this unique combination of these two principles of success and spirituality, of business and Bible, not seeing them as separate, but
Right,
seeing
right.
them come together. And so I often say my success is because of my spirituality. And so
Yes.
putting those two things together, I've just always seen it that way. And I got to throw this in. I
Yeah.
found out this year that when I was a kid, my mother prayed a prayer. There's a woman in the Bible, her name's Hannah, and she prays this prayer that says, "If you give me a son, I'm going to give him back to you." And she wasn't able to produce a child. Well, my mother just this year told me that she prayed a similar prayer. There was some type of complication that made it that or suggested that I might not make it here. She prayed that
Mm.
prayer and made a deal, and now I'm here. And so the rest
Oh
is
man,
literally history.
you just gave me goosebumps with that because I know you had mentioned before, joking about how you came out of the womb, but I didn't realize that that wasn't your family that was kind of feeding you all of this. It wasn't the environment that you grew up in to think
No,
this way. Yeah, that's
no, it really
fascinating.
wasn't. I was
Yeah, I
born
love
in
that.
Denver, but raised in Memphis. And in the area of Memphis that I was raised in, you saw a lot of the plight that sometimes happens with
Hmm.
inner city neighborhoods. Immediately post Reconstruction, it was one of the several what they call Black Wall Streets in the US where you saw ingenuity, entrepreneurship, high business capacity, very profitable neighborhoods. Well, over time, through policy and practice and what have you, you would see changes in those areas. And so I didn't see that. The man I am is a man that was literally made by God and literally
Mm,
made by me looking at different people, snagging different parts. And I think that's
yeah.
one of the things sometimes when you talk about people today, it's like, well, who am I becoming? Well, I can take this from him, this from him, this from him, this from him, this from her, this from her. And you create this, Frankenstein in a good way of all of
Hmm.
these different attributes together that really create this unique person.
I love it. Love it. I mean, it's so many questions are running through my head now. I'm like, gosh, I want to almost like rewind the tape and talk about this. One of the things you said was that your business is because of the Bible, right? That it is because of your faith. Talk to me a little bit about that. Like, what principles? And I'll give you a little
Mhm.
context. I literally had a client to me say to me the other day, like, you know, I believe in God and I
Yeah.
say all these things, but like I don't always feel like I'm showing up that way. And I'm rereading the book Chase the Lion. Have you ever read it before?
Oh my God.
Oh,
In a pit with a lion on a snowy day.
yes,
Love that book.
right. I'm rereading it because I just kind of wanted to get regrounded and everything. And he talks about
Right.
he was like many people believe in God but don't live like they do. So,
Yes.
what are your founding principles of your business that allow
Mhm.
you to bring in that spirituality for yourself that you live by and embrace?
Great question. And love that book and that sequel. In
Hmm.
fact, to be honest with you, when I read that, I was like, I've read at that time. I'd read the Bible. I don't know, maybe half a dozen times. The first time I read the book, And I said, how in the world have I not? How do I not remember this story? But anyways, powerful story. But in that, for me, it because I always saw these two things working together in tandem. To me, to show up in business different than that would actually be inauthentic. To show
Mm-hmm.
up in business different than the spiritual principles that I believe in, to me would be very inauthentic. So, there were three that I can think of that are principled right from scripture. One is the importance of excellence, doing things well. In Daniel, there's the story about how Daniel had an excellent spirit, which just means mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Old Testament is the word ruach, New Testament is the word pneuma, but it just means mindset. He had a mindset of excellence. So to me, everything we do, anything I do, it has to be done well. Excellence is a fingerprint, and I want everything I do to have my fingerprint on it. And so people can look and see if that's not excellent. Oh no, we know Bishop Foreman had nothing to do with that. He had nothing to do with that because that's not his fingerprint. Excellence was important. Another thing, a principle that I saw from Scripture was efficiency. The Bible talked a lot about being a good steward, being a good manager, counting up the costs before you go and do
Mm-hmm.
something. So I said, all right, let's be efficient. Busy doesn't mean productive. And I think we live in a culture that is mastered busy. I'm so busy doing this. I'm so busy doing this. I'm so busy doing this. But at the end of it, were you efficient? Did you do the right things? So excellence is doing things well. Efficiency, did you do the right things well? Or did you just spend time being busy? It's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like I think about it being on the being on the treadmill, and I've lost now 120 total pounds. I think is the
Wow.
number. I did all naturally, and but one of the things that I do not do at the gym is the treadmill, and here's why. It's a now not knocking those that do. It's just for me. It's a subconscious thing. I don't like to see myself putting out energy and not going anywhere. So I do all of my cardio outside. I don't want my mind to even take on the programming that it's acceptable to stay in one place and put out energy, but not go anywhere.
Mm.
And I know
You're
there's
gonna
a
shut
counter
the
argument.
treadmill companies down. I mean,
Oh,
here we go.
listen, I'm telling you, look, I don't even like the ellipticals. I don't like any of them because I like to be out and
Yeah,
about
I
and see
agree.
things. And I get creative and ideas come. And most of the time, that's my people. So when do you create? When do you that? When I'm exercising, when I'm out, when I'm walking, when I'm
So
jogging.
true. Yeah.
That's when I get most creative. But efficiency, doing the right things well. And so I think that's another biblical principle that has shaped me. And then I'd say lastly, recognizing, and we hit it a bit earlier, recognizing the power of new, the power of a pivot. So I would call this, if I was to use three E's, excellence, efficiency, I would call this evolution, the ability to evolve. I
Mm.
think for many leaders, we get so attached to who we were that we overestimate who we were and what we had and undervalue who we could become and what we could achieve. So for
Yeah.
me, I'm constantly evolving. There's this scripture in Isaiah that talks about, behold, I do a new thing. So like, okay, God's always doing new, but we're like, okay, I like the sound of new, but let me do it old. Let me do it the old way, old paradigm. And it goes back to where we started. There's got to be a pivot. And for me, I'm always evolving. Who I am today is not who I was 12 months ago, not who I was yesterday. I
Mm.
give myself the freedom to evolve. I'm not a
Love it.
tree, I can move.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay, so talk to me then about being able to combine this idea of like evolving, constant movement. Like I just see it in you, and literally hummingbird came to my mind, thinking
Mm,
about you where you're like, I'm always going.
yeah.
So this is something that I think about often, right? That the word always says like, hey, don't be in such a hurry to do things all the
Hmm.
time. So I'm really
Hmm.
bringing in a lot of the being, right, and not just
Yeah.
doing. So
Right.
I know there's got to be moments in your life where you're like, I can be content
Hmm.
and be and enjoy the present and have all the gratitude and also keep going. Or do you have those moments where it's like, yeah, we're here and then we're going to go again and then we're here? Any thoughts on that?
Great question. I think it's both and not either or. I
Mm-hmm.
think now I had to learn that because again, I have like since I was a kid, I had one button on. And there was no off switch and, that type of thing. I had to learn to do exactly what you said, to enjoy my wins, to enjoy my victories. And so what I had to walk in was this. The plane is too big for me to land it. But what I can do is learn how to refuel it in the air. Air Force One, it can be refueled in the air. The plane that the president of the United States, once he gets on it, that's when they call it Air Force
Mm,
One. And the point was this, is that for many people, it becomes either they're all the way on or they're all the way off. And that can be a challenge when you are a driven, motivated person that wants to get things done. The problem with that, though, is that you may not celebrate your own victories, celebrate your own wins, enjoy the moment that you are in. Enjoy the day. Sure, you've got 50 emails to get to or whatever it is you got to do, but enjoy the moment. Be thankful that you've got 50 emails to get to, right? So for me, what I did is I took on that mentality and that approach, which is I will be present in every moment. I will enjoy every moment. I will keep it moving, but I will celebrate the moment that I'm in.
right.
And the way I like to really view that in practice is that I'm going to fully engage the space I'm in, and not just even in the moment. Like there's seasons of life. Like there's seasons where there's certain things you want to do, you can't do because there's things that are out of your control. Embrace the fact that I can't control any of that, but I can control how it affects me.
Hmm.
Embrace the fact that maybe you're being delayed and you're like, I can't do anything about this delay. Well, what if the delay was for your benefit? Maybe you're being provoked. Embrace the fact that, okay, something's coming against me right now. I'm going to actually use this as an opportunity to be revelation from my situation about who I am as an individual. What is this showing me about me? So, my whole thing is I'm present. I enjoy and maximize every single day. I keep it moving, but I enjoy the day.
I'm with you there. I mean, it's just so key. One, for fulfillment, right?
Yes,
And the
yes.
results. You get so much more out of anything that you're doing when you're
Oh, yes.
present, and the more fulfillment. And also, I think it's such a big thing for confidence, right? I see
Hmm.
people all the time not celebrate their wins, and then they're wondering why they have self-doubt, or why
Hmm.
they feel like their business is created upon luck.
Hmm.
And it's like, well, if you're not giving yourself credit, if you're not celebrating those wins, then
Yes.
nobody's kind of keeping score on this. And of course, it's
Right.
going to feel like luck. So I love
Yes.
that. I love it. Let's
Yes.
talk about vision, because I don't even have a list long enough to read, right? You've written 4 books. You are a pastor, you are a bishop, you're musically inclined, you put out singles, you run a church, you're a success coach. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So, did you have a vision for one of these things at one point in time? Like, how did you get here, and where did your initial vision start?
Oh my goodness. So this is good. So, I started out as a kid, Bible in a briefcase. So I have this affinity towards these things, but it's really interesting. I was very shy as a kid. And to be honest, even as an adult, oh yes, very shy. In
For
fact, I
the
used to
I'm tilting
perspire
my
really
head here, you
heavily.
guys.
I saw it, I saw it. Yeah, but I used to perspire really heavily. So you could see my shy. You could
Uh-huh.
see when I was nervous. And so but you put me on a stage like a fish in water. You put
Mm.
me in front of a group of people, fish in water. Now, when I walked off that stage, right, and it was just really this unique thing. But so also in school, I used to make friends with the teachers and the principals and the administrators. I didn't make friends with my peers. I made friends with people in power because there was just something in me that said that makes more sense to be good with them than it does to be good with you. So I was the kid in elementary school. I was grading my peers' papers. While they were at recess, I was in there grading papers, and I ran the teacher's grade book. So I had, as a kid, I had this weird, I say weird, but yeah, this affinity. Like, they said, what do you want for, Christmas, or what do you want for your birthday, or whatever. I was like, give me some red teacher grade pens and a grade book. The craziest thing ever. What kid asks for a grade book? But it is what it is. I used to love those things. So I was into instruction and into people in places of power and into success. Started my first business when I was 12. That's the same time I got into ministry as a musician. I started as a drummer and would eventually be inducted into the Colorado Gospel Music Hall of Fame. I didn't even know we had one until I was inducted in it. That was a great honor. And by the time I was 21, I built Denver's largest African American owned real estate finance brokerage. So, we were the biggest, and to my knowledge, no one's exceeded what we did in terms of volume and size at 21. So all of those things, kind of work together. But here was my plan. My plan, I didn't want to be a pastor. I did not want to be a bishop as a pastor to pastors. I wanted to do this. And there's tape of me saying this when I was 16 years old. I was on the network back then. It was called UPN, for those of you that remember it. So you gotta be
Mm-hmm.
you gotta be north of 25 to remember that. But UPN, and they were doing this spotlight on teens, and the future of America type of thing. And as a teenager, I pioneered this program called Teen Court. And so there was a thing they were doing to try to use it as a diversionary program so that juveniles and young people were not caught up into the criminal justice system, but
Mm-hmm.
that it was a complete diversion. And so they interviewed some of us. I was like the third attorney that had come through this program. So I wanted to go into law. I wanted to go into politics. And I'm literally on camera at 16 saying that I wanted to be the first black president. President Obama beat me, but I wanted to be the first black president of the United States of America. And so I'm thinking, this is what I want to do. I want to go into law. I want to go into politics. This is what I want to do. And none of that was part of the plan that would be had for my life. Interestingly enough, I get to do all of those things from a different seat. So for example, when it comes to politics, and again, there's a lot happening with politics today. I'll say this: I get to sit in the rooms with the people that are making the decisions and the policies to influence the lives of people. They will send me bills and say, Bishop, redline this for us and tell us what you think about this. What do you think about this? And so that's where I become very efficacious in making sure that the policies that meet the people are advancing those people. When it comes to law, I get to deal with the attorney general there who in Colorado. He would give me special projects and different things when we needed to address certain things. And so I became the go-to. In fact, he said, Bishop, you should really be an attorney. I said, well, you know something? I had a whole plan about doing that, and that didn't happen. Education. We've created Harvest Bible College. So we literally have a whole college that is the only degree granting theological institution out of the state of Colorado where you can earn your associates through doctoral level degree.
Mm.
So all of the different things I wanted to do, I'm doing them just from a different seat. So to your question, that I always see myself doing what I'm doing, absolutely not. But what I was committed to was that when I found the thing that I was supposed to do, I'd give it my all.
Mm. And what was that like for you when you found the thing you were supposed to do?
Mhm. Yeah, you want to know what happened? I was in a car accident. So again, me being me, the day I turned 16, right, I'm ready to get a car. So I had the deal negotiated. I told my mom, here's the money. I got the money. I just need you to go do the paperwork because I can't do it. My first car was an Infiniti G20. That thing was clean. Totally had the deal done, did all the negotiating. Literally, all my mom had to do was show up with insurance and sign. That was it. And before we got there, I said everything's done, everything's fine. She's, what have you. And it was a New Year's Eve. We were coming home from a New Year's Eve church service. It was a snowstorm in Denver, and very little snow though. It was look though. It was just a fine powder, and my car begins to spin, out of control, and has an accident. Myself, my sister in the car. I'm 16 years old. And we get out of the car, and something pretty interesting happens. I look at the car. We hit the curb. That's all we hit, and a bus stop. But just a bus bench. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
But there were these gashes on the side of my door, three gashes on the driver's side, and I thought, where are three gashes coming from? Like where did this come from? Like all I hit was the bench and the curb. Like where did this come from? My sister was completely not, no injuries. And that night, I remember going home with an anger. I felt like my life was attacked. I felt like, what is this? And I just had this anger. I said, what is this? Why am I here? What am I going? Like, this is crazy. I've never been in something like this. And I took the time, and this is the one time in my life, well, not one time, but one of the times in my life where I remember this audible voice to me. I opened up the Bible and I was like, I don't know what I'm looking for. I just know that Something just happened. And again, problem, pivot,
Right.
purpose. So there was a problem. So here's the pivot. I opened the book and I began reading about Paul. It's one of the New Testament letters, and I hear this audible voice. That's what you are. That day, I wrote my first message. I was 16. I wrote my first message, and I continued to do all the things I did in business. But from that day, I knew that what I had originally planned was going to be different. That was the day that was pivotal in recognizing this is what you're going to do.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
a fascinating story. And
Yeah.
to be able to hear that,
Yeah.
I think people yearn to find that direction. And whether it's, I mean, I kind of argue, right? Like whether you feel it in your gut and it's your own
Hmm.
intuition, or
Hmm.
whether it's God or God giving you that intuition,
Right.
all a combination of all of it. But people
Right.
yearn to hear that. Do you believe that you had to do anything in particular? Were you present at that time? Anything like that to be able to receive that message?
I love that question. And I think about it this way. There's a ton of ways that God could speak. He
Hmm.
used donkeys. He used, we go down that whole plan, that whole line. He used storms. In the book of Job, it says through the storm, he spoke to Job. God's always speaking through a variety of voices. There's a scripture that says God's always speaking, but man's not aware or perceptive.
Hmm.
For me, what made me perceive was that problem and that pain of that moment, feeling like, because remember, three gashes on the side of the car. I'm saying, but where did they come from? This was interesting to me. That's a whole nother discussion about that. But it is speculated that whenever you experience those types of things, there's something supernatural behind it. So I saw it as a supernatural thing. And really, what opened me up to being able to do that was that I was in this emotionally vulnerable, spiritually vulnerable, open moment where I said, I, I'm here for something, and it's more than just making money. I'm here for something, and it's more than just doing the business things that I'm doing and all that. It's more than that, and I think it really was that pain that opened me up, excuse me, to be perceptive, to be able to receive that. And I think it's true for many people that it's sometimes the valleys that you hear the voice.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, we're more curious, right? We're more like,
Yes,
how is this happening? Why is this
yes,
happening? Right? We're asking the
yes,
questions and waiting for that answer, when oftentimes when we're at the peak, right? And that's when God talks a lot about, right, us going solo, and we
yes,
don't we don't need the voice anymore, and we don't
yes,
need the companionship or the gardening, because
right.
we're straight up and all is
Yes.
good. So I do like that perception of that a lot. It's a perspective, because it reminds us that, what, listen to the voice at all times.
Yep.
Be open to hearing the message, whether
Yep.
it's being put in you in your own intuition and your gut,
Yep.
or externally, you're hearing from your own spirituality or your source,
Mhm.
that even in the high times, it's there and it's guiding us. So, so
Yes.
good. Yes.
Yes.
Talk to me about the transformation aspect of it, because I know that's a big piece for you. As I was, again,
Mhm.
looking through your content, you're talking about being able to transform, not just survive. And oftentimes people feel
Mhm.
like, I'm just surviving through this, and they'll use the word thriving, like, I don't want to survive, I
Mhm.
want to thrive. But you're
Mhm.
saying, we don't want to just survive this, we actually want to transform through it.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. When I think back to again, problem to pivot, that transformation, that night that I just mentioned, I wrote my first message. Not the first thing about writing a message. I wrote my first message that night. It would be years before I would ever actually, do something with that. But it began that process. And so I think when I think of transformation, I think of the butterfly. One of the most fascinating, animals to study. Four stages in this life cycle, and I think we all go through these four stages in every area of our lives. Not just life in general, but every area of our lives. Starts as small as a sesame seed on a sesame seed bun. Then stage two, it busts out of that small place and it grows to 100 times its size. This is when we see the caterpillar we're familiar with. It moves
Hmm.
at inches per hour. Stage three, something crazy happens. After all of that success, after all of that growth, it's now in a chrysalis or a cocoon buried underground or behind the leaf. For as short as 2 weeks, some as many as 2 years. It's often theorized that the longer it's in the chrysalis, the bigger it's going to be when it comes out in stage four.
Mm, mm,
And what's happening in stage three? Well, a lot's happening that nobody else can see. And I think this is the power of transformation because before things change around me, they change in me. Before things change in what I see, things change in me. Before what I manifest changes, it changes in my mind. It's growing wings. It didn't need wings in stage two because it crawled. It's growing what's necessary. Its legs have to take a different shape because you used to crawl like this. Now your legs are going to have you perched on trees and flowers, etc. A lot of internal transformation is happening. And then something else crazy happens. When it's ready to exit stage three, it has to struggle its way out of that cocoon. And the struggle is to give its wings the strength to be able to fly. And so then you get to stage four where you were crawling inches per hour. Now you're flying miles per hour. They say some butterflies can fly as much as 30 miles per hour.
wow.
That's faster than some people drive. And so, and so
Depending on where you live.
right, that's true. Very true. Very true. Very true. Well, here in Atlanta, I'm in Atlanta now. I can tell you, it is not the case. Everybody here is going somewhere fast. But that's what transformation is really all about. So, if you were to ask the butterfly in stage two, it'd say it's thriving. In stage three, it doesn't know there's a four coming. So in stage three, it may feel like, oh, I'm just surviving. Things are stagnant. Things are stuck. But just because you feel doesn't mean it's real. Feelings aren't facts.
Mhm.
And I think many times you talk about leaders and high achievers and people who get things done and business owners and executives, is that sometimes our feelings can fool us because it'll trick us into thinking you're not doing what you're doing. Like in stage three, you're overlooked. You're not overbooked. In stage three, you're not really achieving the things you want to achieve. And you said it earlier so eloquently, like, you can think you're not doing it because you're not keeping score. Did you just see that wing you just grew? Did you just see that other wing? Like, are you seeing what's happening to you right now? Well, no, because everywhere we look, we see everything but ourselves.
Mhm.
And I think when you talk about transformation, it's recognizing that I need to sometimes step back to see what I'm doing, to see who I'm becoming, to see what I am transforming into. And then stage four, it takes off and it flies. I think if we apply that principle in every area of life, whether you're an athlete, an entrepreneur, business owner, leader, mom, dad, whatever, applying that principle is exactly what it is. And transformation, success, all of that, that's not a straight line. That's small as a sesame seed on a sesame seed bun. You do a really good job, get really great. And then now you're in a chrysalis or a cocoon, isolated. Even if you got people around you, you can feel isolated. And then you bust out of that something totally different than where you were when you started.
Fascinating. And just I love the visual. You guys can't see me, obviously, if you're just listening to the podcast, but I'm just like, in awe as you talk and you describe this because it's so true, and I think many people approach these situations, the problem, as you call it, as like, how do I just survive this? How do I just get out the other side?
Mhm.
And
Mm.
I like to think about it, it's not happening to you, it's happening for you, right?
Yes.
If it happens to you, then yeah, you have to just kind of like put them up, right? And figure out how to endure. But when it's happening for you, it's like, oh, what wings do I get to grow? What do I
Right.
need to do internally? And
Right.
that's a conversation near and dear to my heart because you probably see this too. Everyone always wants to focus on the external things like how do
Yep.
I increase the success? How do I, gather more influence? How do I
Yep.
be better with my time, sales,
Right.
whatever it is, and nobody wants to come inward. And it's the
Right.
inside work that then creates, and we can even compare it, right, to your four stages. It's the
Right.
work you do in the cocoon that is going to allow you to go out there and make such an impact. And then the sales are just going to happen. The influence
Yep.
is just going to happen. All of that is a byproduct of the inside work.
I can even I can give several examples, but I think about when the mortgage company,
Mm-hmm.
um, that industry collapsed over the weekend. I had just opened a brand new office. I said, look, this is the worst time this could happen. Just open a brand new office. And here it is. I'm presented with a problem. So now I got to pivot. What am I going to do? So we pivoted, figured that out, but it created this space, this cocoon, where I said, what am I going to do? I built a successful business. I made more money in 1 month that many people made in, a year, in decades, in lifetime. And now, like that, everything's different. Everything's changed. It's not just me. So it's not just about, oh, let me try it this way, try it this way. The industry is locked down. It's shut down. And so that would be the cocoon that would eventually birth when we planted the church. Because the truth is, I never would have done it had business continued to succeed. So I love your statement. It's happening for you, not to you. But had I been unwilling to pivot, I would have been mad, banging my head against the wall, saying, why me? Why me? Why me? Not fair, not fair, not fair. Can't believe it, can't believe it, can't believe it. Instead of pivoting into what now tens of thousands of people have been impacted as a result of that. Every single time I've been confronted with a problem and I pivoted, it turned into something productive, something progressive, and something purposeful that was greater than what I thought it could have ever been.
Mm. And I want people to know that that would not have been possible if you would have dropped your energy. The
Yes.
energy, the 10 that you stay at, that vibration, that gratitude,
Hmm.
that attraction, that is what allowed you to even pivot. Had you
Yes.
started to drop that frequency down and go, why me? I have the worst luck.
Hmm. Yep. That's
You
so
know,
true.
you go
So
down
true.
into the hole, and then it's like, then all of a sudden you wonder why more bad things are happening,
Yep.
more
Yep.
bad luck. Why
Yep.
me? Right.
Yep.
So it all goes back to that energy in the very beginning when you're like, I'm always out of 10. It's a
It
choice. It is a
is.
choice. Yes, you may have been born with a Bible in a briefcase and all this energy, but you choose it every single day. And I want to take it back to
Yes.
the beginning because I wanted to ask this question I didn't get a chance to. What's the first thing? And maybe it is what you already said. What's the first thing you say when you wake up in the morning? What's the first thought that comes into your head?
Listen, the moment my eyes open, I normally say this: this is the day the Lord has made. I will rejoice, be made glad in it. Second phrase, and sometimes they're vice versa. I hit the lotto, hit the
Yeah.
jackpot.
Yeah.
You're up again. You're up again. Up, he did it again. Up, you're
Yeah.
up again. Like you hit the lotto, you hit the jackpot, and it's so funny. A friend of mine mentioned this to me because we were on a trip I don't something was happening and they said, you just did you see what you did? I was like, what did I do? They just said, you just got right up out of your rest and boom, you were right on it. And we're like, I've never seen anybody do that. And I said, I don't know any other way. Like, listen, I'm excited to start the day. Like, there's going to be
Right.
some good news in this day. There's going to be some victories in this day. There are going to be some challenges too. But at the end of the day, I love what you said. It's a choice. Because I could choose to let the things that come against, and everybody's got things trying to come against you, trying to block you, trying to stop you. You could choose to let that block you, stop you, impede you, impair you. Or you can choose to say, this is going to be a stepping stool. This is not going to be, a setback. This is going to be a setup. I'm not going to let, what's being said negative stop me. I'm going to let every hater become an elevator. It's these little things that you just have to adopt in your daily life.
Yes.
And you recognize, listen, this is my choice. I get to pick my emotions and I refuse to pick being sad.
And I want
Yep.
everyone to hear that. Like you just rattled off all these really great little reframes,
Right.
like not a setback, it's a set up,
Yep.
not a hater, an elevator. And
Yep.
that's the power that I feel like a lot of people don't embrace. You all get the opportunity to choose your thoughts. And I
Hmm.
often change my morning thought depending on sometimes the season that I'm in or what's going on. But that
Right.
first thought every single morning, the very first thought that you choose sets that energy. Mine
Yes.
right now is God, thank you for my gifts to go out and be impactful, right?
Love
That
that.
gets you excited to go start
Love
your
that.
day. So I just love that. And I hope that everyone
Yes.
listening will think about what's your first thought and what do you want it to be? Because the default is probably like, man, I'm tired. I didn't get enough sleep. I wish I had some rest. I don't really feel like working out. I don't really feel, choose something that's going to get you going. I
Yeah.
know we're wrapping up here. I want to ask you one. Gosh, this is a really big question I saved all the way to the
Sure.
end. Should have been earlier, but you do such a good job of bringing the word into everyday life. You
Mm.
said
Thank you.
earlier, like this spirit of excellence, and you're like, that's mindset, right? Like
Hmm.
you equate words that we use every single day back
Hmm.
to the Bible. How can people do that? Because I think there's this gap in an archaic book, right? And
Sure.
especially if you're going into the Old Testament, right?
Sure.
And making it go like, no, this is everyday principles,
Yep.
personally, professionally, just goodness in a human,
Yes.
So how do you do that, or how do you recommend people kind of fill that gap?
Love that question. So, I think about it this way. I think part of the reason why this is part of my assignment, one of the things that I do as a speaker and pastor and all that, is that I would listen to messages and I would sometimes think, well, I'm just never going to get it because I would hear this terminology used, this nomenclature used. And I just thought, man, they just must be so far advanced. I just would hear terms like, I just have no clue what that is. Man, I hope I can get there one day. And then I stepped back and said, wait a minute, these are regular people in this book. These are regular people. These are regular things that are happening. These are real life situations. And there's nothing extraordinary about them other than the fact that they did something that made it notable so that it be recorded. And why them out of the billions of people that had already walked on the planet? Why them? So there's something out of each of these stories, each of these things that happen that I can take from it. And so for me, I just began to look at it real practically. I was like, if the gospel is good news should work every day of the week. It shouldn't just be this spiritual high on a Sunday and then like, well, that's nice. I feel really great, but I can't do anything else with it. And I think that's why there's this separation between the two, is because there's a spiritual high, but then there's nothing you can do with it. There's nothing pragmatic. So for me, I think what I'd suggest to folks is, one, step back and don't look at it as anything other than these are real stories from real people that happened. So what did they do? How did it work out for them? And how can I learn from it? I began to apply this principle that experience is not the best teacher. Somebody else's is. So I view these as people's experiences. I view the word as people's experiences. Like I mentioned David. Okay, so David fought a lion and a bear. What were my lion and bear? What's my Goliath? What's my rejection issue? Because David was rejected by his father. Jesse, what are my issues? What are my challenges? How did David make this decision? I take, like a doctor, I take a scalpel to that thing, and then I begin to look at it from a human being standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, where do we start? Problems are not unique. They just may be new for us, but they're not unique. It's the same stuff, same thing over and over again. So one, approach it that way. Two, sometimes people are trying to digest too much. And when you try to eat too much, it's like not eating at all because you didn't get to enjoy it. You didn't get to savor it. And so in our app, we literally have this Bible reading plan where it literally will read it to you. And I actually like to listen to it because it's like you were doing where you were visualizing it. I visualize it. And I think, oh wow. And so now I'm getting these visualizations, but I'm not trying to digest too much information. When I first started, I would, I'm going to read 15 chapters a day, 5 chapters a day. That is too much. Maybe a few verses a day is going to be far more efficacious than trying to digest too much because it becomes overwhelming and then you don't know what to do with it. And thirdly, I would focus on practicing what I learned immediately. Like the reflection was, let's go do it. So if I just learn, how to conquer a challenge, let's go do it right now. Because the moment you put something in practice, you concretize it, you lock that thing in. And I think when it comes to spiritual principles, many people, oh, this is good. I was thinking about how I'm going to use this for that, use that for that. If you become so reflective that you are not able to become proactive. And so
Mm-hmm.
for me, like, let's do it right now. Like, not tomorrow, like right now. And if I do it right now, it becomes a part of how I live. So back to where we started, it's the authentic me because the authentic me has been transformed. This is how I live versus I read a book about how other people lived and I think it's neat.
I love it. So good. See, it was the perfect question for the end of this
Yes.
episode.
Yes,
Yes,
it
I
was.
love it. You have been such a gift. Your energy, your wisdom, all of it. I'm just so grateful that you came on here to share it. My goodness, you have so much stuff out there, Bishop. 4 books that we didn't even do justice talking about it. What is the best place for people to tap into? You even talked about an app that you have. So share some of
Yes.
that with us.
Sure. But again, thank you for having me. Big salute to what you do and how you're influencing lives, impacting people. I made it my business. I told my team I want to find every teacher that had any significant, not just scholastic, but any teacher that had any level of impact in my life. Because for this birthday, I said, I want to honor the people who had their hand in making me. And so, what you're doing, you're having your hand in making and impacting and influencing people. And it may be one little thing you say. What I've discovered is sometimes you think it's this great, elaborate thing. Sometimes it's the smallest, most innocuous thing that you said, because big doors swing on small hinges, that small hinge that opened the door for somebody. So thank you for what you do. But to connect, bishopforeman.com, Foreman.com. It's the best way to connect. You can get all my socials, which are also at Bishop Foreman. And if you're watching or listening or however you're consuming this, I'd love to know that you got some value out of it. And so you can literally shoot me a DM on Instagram. I do actually respond to them. I get about 400 to 500 a day, so it takes me a little bit to get back to you, but I actually do like to respond. I like to know how people are being impacted. And the books are on there. They're great, from finance to the new you, the butterfly we talked about. It's called Evolutionaries. My latest History Makers is coming out in October. We're excited about that. So, but everything, bishopforeman.com or on social at Bishop Foreman.
Amazing. Thank you again for being such a light and spreading your gifts and making a difference out there, Bishop Foreman.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.